I'm going to do a quick intro here. Greetings and welcome to the recombobulation area. My name is Dan Schaefer. Thank you for joining us. So we have something a little different planned for you today. There is, of course, a ton happening in the political universe in Milwaukee and Wisconsin and beyond. But as anyone who follows me on social media knows, I am a huge Milwaukee Bucks fan. And we just endured a roller coaster of a week as Bucks fans, with Giannis Antetokounmpo being in trade rumors all the way leading up to the NBA trade deadline. But after all that, Giannis is still a member of the Milwaukee Bucks and here to recombobulate with us after a discombobulating week in Milwaukee is sports radio legend Bart Winkler. Bart, welcome to the recombobulation area.
You know, there is a lot going on, Dan, and thank you for having me. There is a lot going on. And let me just say, I know I'm a sports guy and I got to stick in my lane all the time. I'm having a very hard time with that. There's just too much going on. And I feel like, what am I don't know. It's a struggle because right now I'm between jobs again. Although I've got the Into the Winklerverse podcast. Please check it out. But, it's like, am I saying something that's gonna cost me? I just feel like everybody, when you don't have a boss, you feel like everybody's kind of your boss because I don't know what I'm doing that, is someday going to impact a relationship or a job offer or whatever. So I say that because sports is always the great, distractor, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've struggled a lot of times going into work last couple of years where I'm like, I'm so wrapped up in I get really wrapped up. I was a political science minor. I get really wrapped up in that. And then I have to go to a sports show, which is hard for me, but it is a distraction for others. Again, I'm saying all this because it hasn't been working. Like the NFL has not been doing it for me and nothing's been doing it. This did it for me. This whole Giannis saga took me away from doom scrolling all day because of how I feel distinctly personal this is. And I know that you've been very outspoken on Giannis and you do a good job of painting like this isn't just normal superstar city. There's a different relationship here for a lot of different reasons. A lot of different reasons. And
we can get into a lot of that.
Yeah, and we should. And I think for me the biggest issue is I said this the other day on my sports show. I said, it's just like real life, guys. These oligarchs don't want you to have anything. They don't even want you to have little because they want you to have nothing. And that's how the NBA media is treating Milwaukee. We're not supposed to have Giannis. We were never supposed to get a guy like this, and we were not supposed to win with him. And he was not supposed to sign to stay here 3 more times, possibly a 4th. So they've been trying for a long time. They've been throwing out rumors. This time is a little different. And I think Giannis is a little more confused. But this is when it should have started. The Bucks won a title, then they were trying and things happened. Now they're bad. So now you're like, okay, should we trade Giannis? It's personal because if everybody just had this conversation now, that's fine. We'd have to deal with losing a superstar. But because they've been prodding on us and prodding at Giannis since before COVID.
I was going back and looking at that. The clip of Giannis walking off the podium at the Eastern Conference Finals, that was 2019. So the 4-letter network has been dragging us through this every trade deadline, every offseason for damn near 7 years now. And over again, Giannis continues to commit. And I'm not going to put the blinders completely on to say that there was absolutely no chance he was going. Everything he is saying is exactly what he is feeling behind the scenes. I know that there was a chance that something might happen, but I think the overarching narrative about this has been so frustrating because we always want superstars to stay with the team that drafted them, win the championship in the small market, do the thing. And then Giannis, everybody's like, well, couple down years, he's got to go now.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, is it just a Milwaukee thing? I don't see this with Jokic. I don't see this with, a lot of other players. It just feels so specific to Giannis. And yes, maybe they're at the end of their window, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's the type of player that is going to do what so many of the other stars in the NBA in recent years have done and demand the trade and all of that. But I think, just to reset, Giannis did not get traded. He is
No,
still on the Milwaukee Bucks.
yeah.
We had this really, up and down week with all of the nonsense. But at the end of it, like,
Which we'll have
how
to go
did you
through
feel?
again.
I was very nervous over the course of the week. I'm
Yeah.
never gonna count anything. I had like a timer on my watch going down to the trade deadline, so I was looking at it like I was in a '90s disaster movie, like 6 hours to go, trade deadline, like the crawl on the bottom of the feed in Independence Day. But we made it to 2 p.m. yesterday, and Giannis is still a Buck. And what was your reaction to, like, once we started getting the reporting? I don't know, late yesterday morning, about 24 hours ago, I guess, where some of the reporting was like, they're not trading Giannis. They're making this kind of like fringe move around the edges with Cole Anthony and whatever. And Giannis is going to remain a Buck past the trade deadline. What was your initial reaction there?
I feel like I did not think, I certainly thought it was a chance. I thought he would make it through this trade deadline.
Yeah.
I think for him and for the Bucks, the best course of action for both is if they're going to make a trade, it should be in the summertime. So I think
Hmm.
I think for this particular one, um, and there's been a lot of them, and that's like the frustration is it makes like it made sense last summer if Giannis would have got traded because this is a team that has been. I feel like John Horst, try to win a title if you can. Your job is keeping Giannis.
Hmm.
And so over the years, there may have been that pressure on him because they've fired coaches, they've made trades based on after 2021, it's just been injuries that's knocked this team out of the postseason where Chris is down or Dame's down or Giannis is down. I mean, these guys, I think Chris, Giannis, and Dame played together for like a day.
I
Like
know.
maybe even less than AD and Kyrie did.
I know. I know.
Balance. So what's bothered me about this whole saga the most is that there hasn't been a time that it would make sense for observers to say, "Hey, that might need to end." It's not that. It's been just, "Hey, he's in a small market, get him out." That's what it's been. Because why do this in 19? Then they won a title. Why do it then? And they're not doing it with other people. I tweeted last night, and I'm always going to call it Twitter until twitter.com doesn't take me to Twitter.
Of course. Same here. I still call it Altera, so in
Oh,
Milwaukee.
wow.
Yeah.
But so why did I say that? Twitter. Why did I say that? What was I saying?
I don't know.
I
We're
had to get a
already getting
Twitter shot in there.
discombobulated here.
Yeah,
You
I had
had
to get a
something to
Twitter
say
shot in
on
there.
Twitter about the reaction to.
Oh,
Yeah.
Jokic.
Yeah.
Because I said, this is Giannis. This is a top 3 player in the league. The trade packages that are coming in for him are garbage. And you're like bullying the team that has him not to trade him for their sake. Nobody's saying, hey, trade him because you'll get better. Like they're saying you need to get him out of there. You don't deserve to have him. Trade him. So this has been happening for so long and it hasn't made sense. So I said, compare it to Jokic. And people are like, that makes no sense. Why would Jokic? They're a competitive team. Yeah, exactly. The way that it triggers in your brain, like, why are they trying to get Jokic out of Denver? It doesn't make sense to people. That's how it should be in Milwaukee, but they've been doing it so long that barricade has been just hammered right through. This last summer, it did make sense because the Dame
Hmm.
thing wasn't working. He was hurt. It made sense to either, do this gap year theory or trade him. It made sense, and it makes sense at this deadline, and it might make sense in the summer, but I think the time it made the most sense was last summer. And
Hmm.
so now we got so close to the time it made sense for. Now we're gonna start going away from it. And now we're gonna start going away for winning a second title with a different team around Giannis is more likely. Maybe it's not likely at all, but it's more likely than trading Giannis and having to rely on kids that are getting drafted in 5 years. Yeah, it's annoying when the whole media ecosystem is like hawking down on your team and saying, get your superstar out of there. But
Yeah.
if you would have just started that a year ago or even a year and a half ago, it would have made sense. We're so upset in Milwaukee because it doesn't matter how they've been. You've been doing this to us for 6, 7, 8 years.
Well, and that's what puts us in our Milwaukee versus everybody
But
foxhole for
now,
all of it
have you
too.
seen that now all these other teams are so jilted that they didn't get them. So now they're turning it on the Bucks and Giannis, and you're a drama king, and you only want to do what you want to do, and you can't decide and whatever. So now they're saying that Giannis is the reason that all this is going on, and he could say right now, "I'm going to sign the extension." So there is some nuance to it, but they are coming at us, and now they're turning it, saying it's our fault. No, man, we've been dealing with this for almost a decade.
Yeah. And I think it has always been more likely that if they were going to entertain a trade, that it would be in the offseason. I think that opens up the number of suitors. Like it's going to matter who, in the Western Conference, like let's say the Rockets get knocked out in the first round and they start to panic and look around. Maybe they're more open to a Giannis trade in the offseason than they might otherwise be. But I also think that you take it to the offseason with the goal of keeping Giannis and building a team around Giannis and continuing to compete. And I think there is a path there because once they get to the offseason, and this is what so many of the NBA media folks tend to overlook, is that once they get to the offseason, and Eric Name has been very good about pointing this out over and over again, once they get to the offseason, they will have multiple future first round draft picks to trade. And, say what you will about John Horst and his drafting. There's a lot of criticism there, but he's been very creative with trades and using those future draft picks to get, Drew Holiday, to get Damian Lillard, to make changes. Even, to the PJ Tucker trade was very
Yeah.
creative. Like there's been a lot of ways that Horst has been pretty smart and proactive and, kind of pulling the rabbit out of the hat on a few of these things. And so giving him the option to do something in the offseason with those 2 first round picks. And then they also have this unique situation with the draft pick where, they're going to get their pick swapped. They're going to get the worst of the 2 picks of the New Orleans Pelicans. Well, the New Orleans Pelicans are one of the 5 worst teams in the league. And
Yeah.
so they're not going to swap with the Bucks because and not that they really can either because they also traded their pick to Atlanta. And so the Bucks could end up with a top 8 pick. So you go into the offseason with multiple first round picks to trade with Giannis, with this potential top 8 draft pick. And then you build with the players on the roster that are good and decent and can make a difference with. There are not many of those players
No.
left on the roster. This is not a good team. This is not a good roster. I think Miles Turner is good. I think he's being underutilized, especially as an offensive player with Doc Rivers. But I also think like the Ryan Rollins breakout has been phenomenal, and I think super important for the future of the Bucks franchise, because if he's going to be a starting caliber guard who you could, see playing in an NBA Finals game, in a playoff game, that gives you another piece to build around. And then you can continue making these moves in this upcoming offseason to try to build a contender around Giannis. And I think that has to be plan A. I don't know. What do you think?
I would rather do that, but this is also from like where I think I'm at as a Bucks fan is and I think we've had the similar, they were bad and then 2001 happened and you're like, "What? This can happen to us." And then they were bad for a long time. And then you get, excited about E.G. on Leon or Joe Alexander or try to, work yourself into some sort of frenzy over guys that aren't going to pan out. And then this Giannis kid gets drafted. We don't know much about him. And then here he becomes an MVP and an NBA championship winner and a finals MVP and a 50 piece in a clinching game and all that stuff. So because of my Bucks journey,
Mhm.
Giannis gave me a title.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that it gets hard, and but you see it with other teams like Golden State. No one's trying to get Steph Curry out of there. Now they
Right.
won 4 titles, of course, but they're gonna that's their guy, and they're gonna finish with their guy. I would like that same thing to happen here in Milwaukee. And I also do think, because yeah, if you look back at, or some of these draft moves are terrible, but the other option is trade Giannis, and I just don't know what the return package is going to be. Like when the Thunder traded Paul George and they ended up getting SGA and picks until infinitum,
Right.
like that kind of deal. That kind of deal, I is it not available for us? Because you see Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson, these guys are getting traded, Mikal Bridges for multiple picks. But then you see all these offers. It's weird because everyone wants Giannis out, but then everyone also thinks, well, it's a lot of money and he's coming off injury. And why would you? And so
Yeah.
Milwaukee can't have him. He's worth more here, but if you take him out, you're not going to get the value that he's worth. I don't look like, if I was younger, if I was 15 and I knew Giannis my whole life, I might be like, okay, yeah, it's probably not going to work. Let's get some young guys, let's whatever. Let's try to rebuild. I might be like that. I'm not. So personally, I am not personally there, but team wise, I don't think they win a title again either way. I don't think with Giannis they're going to win, and I
So
don't
if
think
the
without
over
him they're
under
going to win.
for Bucks titles with Giannis is 0.5, you're betting the under.
Yeah,
Future titles with
but
Giannis. Yeah.
I'm still with I'm still more optimistic they can win with Giannis than win with whatever ragtag team they come up with, because we've seen those ragtag teams. It takes a guy like Giannis to get it done, and
That's right. I don't want to go
I want
back.
to, and
I don't want to go back to that,
I don't want to
you
go back
know?
either, and I don't want to see him. I don't want to see him win somewhere else, because if he wins somewhere else, he could have won here. If he can go win somewhere else, he can win again. So he could. If you don't think he can win again, that's why Luka got traded. As bad as that trade was, Nico Harrison was just convinced that Luka was never going to win a final, even though he got them to a final. So that, and he got, he's stupid. Um, and Rob Pelinka put one over on him with LA. But still, if you don't
Well,
think Giannis is ever going to win a title, then trade him. But
and
I don't
interesting that
know.
you mentioned the Mavericks because I made this comparison on Twitter yesterday.
Yeah,
So Dirk Nowitzki makes the finals at age 27 in 2006. They lose to the Heat in the 2006 finals. He's still the MVP in 2007, but they lose to the We Believe Warriors. From there, and Dirk's Mavs only win one playoff series between 2007 and 2010. So four postseasons, Dirk wins one playoff series. Similar story with Giannis. He went, instead of losing the finals as Dirk did, Giannis wins the finals in 2021 when he was 26 years old. The Bucks have won one playoff series from 2022 to 2025. So what if Dirk had asked out in 2010? What if he asks out and is like, we've had a few tough postseasons. I want to go to Phoenix. I want to go to
yeah,
whoever was like the top contenders at the time, right? I want to go to the East. I want to go I want to go team up with somebody. I want to go do the thing. Was it maybe better that he stayed? That they ended up kind of building that goofy team around him with Tyson Chandler and Sean Marion and trading for Jason Kidd and having that goofy team of veterans that ultimately had that remarkable playoff run in 2011, then just jumping to the next team. And I think what is overlooked in the discourse so much about this is that it is not a guarantee that if he demands a trade, that it is going to result in the championship.
right.
And I think there are plenty of stories about, look at Kobe in 2007 when he almost got traded to the Bulls. Or look at, Tim Duncan in 2003 almost signing with the Orlando Magic and deciding to stay. And then you look at, the James Hardens of the world who have jumped from team to team over and over again. This doesn't always work.
Right.
So I think if you look at the track record of this, people are just saying, oh, Giannis has got to get out of Dodge. He's got to get to a place he can compete. Oh, I'm sick of wasting another prime of Giannis. Well, were you saying that about Dirk in 2009 and 10? And I think it was a more remarkable story that Dirk was able to stay that Kobe was able to stay, that Tim Duncan was able to stay, that Steph, after the few years that he was injured and the Warriors were not competitive and they tried the whole 2 timelines thing, that he eventually got that later career title in 2022. I just think that, not everything is, Kevin Garnett going to the Celtics, or not
Right.
everything it works out like, look at Carmelo Anthony and the Knicks. Like, there are so many of these examples of these superstar players trying to jump from team to team and it not working. And I think that is really overlooked in a lot of this too.
I'm trying to, Dan, in my personal life and I guess professional, to stop playing the victim. Um, but it's hard in this case because I do feel like the treatment and the coverage and the environment that Giannis is in, I don't think it's like comparable. You can't even one to one him with Dirk. Because now we're in a
No,
time, 15 years later, where the social media aspect, the 24-hour news, the monetization of the news may be worse than ever. Um,
like the poly market stuff. He's talking about like that nonsense.
oh, that's a whole nother disaster.
Yeah.
But like the fact that, because I was talking about this yesterday when we were doing a trade deadline show, um, is why? Like, I remember so many shows I would do on the fan with Chuck Freeman, and a lot of our topics would be, "Hey, did you hear what Cowherd said about the Packers? Did you hear what this guy said?" A lot of it was, "Here's what the national media said of us," and we reacted to that. It felt like we were playing defense all the time. But why do they keep like picking on us? It's because we answer them. Like
Hmm.
we answer them. So
We feed the trolls.
yeah,
Is that our problem? Yeah.
if you're a national radio host, which I have been, um, you tend to like you talk about. I think what happens is you talk about the big teams that you know of the most, like Dodgers, Lakers, Yankees, but then you find out, where do I have an audience? And I had a bigger audience in Baltimore and DC than I did maybe like New York or Philly because I wasn't on in those stations. So all of a sudden I'm placating more to Baltimore because I know I'm going to get a reaction. So I think there is part of, we know Milwaukee is going to fight us, and whatever. Oh, my reputation's damaged. They don't care. They don't care.
No.
They're making enough
No.
money. They don't care. So I think that there's a lot that's different. I think that if Giannis came over, 30 years ago, it's different. I think that Kevin Durant has totally been affected by social media and ring chasing. I think if he played in the 80s, he stays for one team for 20 years and maybe wins 4 times.
He's a
And I
great
think that
poster, though.
he is.
He really posts with the best of them.
And there's another part about Giannis, like he's a foreigner, and now people are throwing like, oh, this whole coming to America shtick where you don't know. Like we just assume, here's another thing we do. We assume everyone's lived the same life.
Hmm.
So even international players, we assume they grew up the same. But in the NBA, we assume everyone's the same. And look, there's a big difference between how Giannis grew up and what basketball was in his life than what a lot of people are doing in America, where my kid's 6 and there's already like, I feel like I'm fighting the tide in my town because everybody around here is like, get my kid up to the next level. Get him. We got to go travel. We got to go to this one. And I'm like, I'm coaching them soccer. Let's just figure out how to play first.
Yeah.
Figure out if they like it. Figure out if they're good at it. And then we can, we don't have to rush everything. So we come up in this system. He came up in a completely different life. He comes here with a developing teenage brain. Okay. And then you're here for a long time. And then like when you go to college, now he stayed there and now he's growing and now there's more people coming into his life and he's really he's ingrained in the fabric of the town. And sure, he may be confused because the Bucks aren't good right now and you only get to do this once. And could there be a better opportunity? And I think that we have to realize that his situation, like, I do think he's being more wishy washy than I would like. I would like him to
Yeah.
commit more firmly. I don't like that he, leaves things open ended, and then he does an article and we celebrate, but then he says something else and we're like, what do you? So there is some part of that that other people are going to criticize, but also I don't know that you look at. I mean, even look at Luca leaving Dallas. He's in LA now, and I think he's going to do the best with that and eventually win there. But when they just came back to Dallas, like that was his home.
Right.
That
Right.
that that was his home. He didn't want to leave. And so I think what Giannis is gonna do, like, I don't ever want to move out of my house that I'm in. We've been here for 15 years, not 13, but whatever. But now all the things that have happened here, the get-togethers, my kids' first steps here, like, you can give me a lot of reasons to show me somewhere else is better, but this is my home, you know? And I think he's going through that, and he we always want our athletes to care about their city and their team as much as we do, which is impossible because we
Right.
grew up with it, whatever. But Giannis, it's different, and Luka was different, and I think Dirk was different, and a lot of these guys that come over are different because they're just thrown into a completely new country, and then they have to figure it out. They can't. Even when I went to college in lacrosse, so that it was far away from home, but it's also close enough. Like people are like, "Oh, Giannis wants to live in New York because it's closer to Greece."
That was nonsense. But
Greece
here's
might
the
as well be the moon right now.
right. So there's two things with that. One is that I think people have totally overlooked the unique relationship that Giannis has with the city of Milwaukee, with the fans in this market. And I think the local reporters did such a phenomenal job
Yeah,
with the interviews that they had this week with Giannis, with Jim Ozarski from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel and Eric Name at The Athletic, having these interviews with Giannis where he's genuinely talking about what's going on, and he's talking about, he's giving the line like, my father is buried here, my kids' passports say born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Like he's, he came here when he came here. Like his family was, I think they needed help from Senator Herb Kohl in the State Department to get them visas to be able to come over. Otherwise, Giannis was going to be
yeah.
like, forget this. I need to be with my family. I'm out of here. And like the Bucks brought his family here and gave him all of these opportunities. And I think he is really loyal to that. And I think he is aware of his perception. And I think it's a genuinely difficult thing. Like somebody was talking like earlier this year about, this is kind of how things work. There's a window that's open for contention for a while, and then it closes. And then what do you do? And I think, in the simplicity, like, kind of zero sum game that's always talked about in sports media, it's like, oh, well, he's got to go to the new thing. Well, I think it's also really interesting to explore the complexity of that, explore the nuance of that, of just like, you are a star player. You have meant so much to this city. The window is closed. The team is not good now. They have to find a different path. What do you do? I think that's kind of a really interesting question. And Giannis, I agree with you. His reaction to that has been a little bit frustrating here and there. But I think at the end of the day, I think it is like, you see his struggle with it too. You see like going back and forth with it. And he's also such an insane competitor that he's just going to want to have a chance to win a title every year. And the fact that he hasn't, the Dame thing didn't work out. The team, the coaching has been pretty awful for the past couple of years post Budenholzer. The 2023 playoffs, losing to the Heat, whether he wanted to admit it or not, that was a failure. That was a horrible, horrible
Oh,
loss.
I hated that he said
And
that.
to me, the end of that was really the end of the run. There was the end. Was losing to the Heat in that first round series when they were the 1 seed, when they were the best team in the regular season that year.
Yeah.
I think that was really the end of it. And then so, they tried with the Dame thing, it didn't work. And now he's grappling with what I think is a genuinely difficult decision.
Yeah, and we're witnesses to that too. And it's actions speaking louder than words, I think, because I think with Craig Counsell, um, he had said all this stuff,
Right.
and he was literally from here. So you think he's one of you, and then the first chance that he And then now he feels, Milwaukee doesn't exist unless, it's convenient for him.
Right.
But Giannis seems to be a different way, and I think sometimes people get upset about his words, but then he continually, he stayed here multiple times.
Right.
And I don't know if he's going to sign again. And I don't know what I would do if I was him. I don't know what he should do. Um, I know what I want is for him to stay because it does give us a better chance, I think. Also, like, I didn't want him to get traded yesterday because the Bucks would have been worse, or because I'd have to tell my kid your favorite player's gone. I didn't want these insiders to win. I'm so tired of this. Like, ESPN's been a big culprit of this, but a lot of people have, where
Hmm.
they just this has been happening since before COVID. So and eventually Giannis could get traded, and then they're
Hmm.
going to say, "See, we were right all along." But that'd be like if one of our local meteorologists said, "All right, your February forecast probably going to snow. Not sure, not actually sure if it is. Probably going to snow like 15 inches." Just historical trends. I don't know. I haven't. I don't know. It might not. It might. And then if you keep, that's all they're saying though. So if you keep telling us that, is it going to snow or not? You don't know. When it does, then they're going to take credit for all the times they told you, even though they forecasted nothing. And also, they're so distracted. Like, I don't understand it. All these trades were happening this week. Anthony Davis and James Harden and some pretty decent names
Yeah.
with some big hauls, and the
Yeah.
Wizards, they're doing, and the Jaren Jackson trade. How do these trades just happen where, oh, we don't know anything about them until they happen? Meanwhile, you're giving us a behind the scenes look that nobody's asked for about a possible eventual trade of Giannis. I don't get it.
I, the Shams Sharania experience and just like the way that the media works on the national level here, where so many of these, kind of newsbreaker folks are, you can tell with Shams specifically that he is copying and pasting something that an agent sent him. You can tell, right? And so I think so much of this is just like the game with the agents and the game with the insiders and, trying to drive a certain narrative in a certain direction and whatever might be. And you're right. We had all these like actually very interesting trades that happened this week that did come out of nowhere because he's not reporting this out. He's almost like an extension of the league office in a
You know the
way where
feeling
he's
you
just
get?
announcing the trades.
You know the feeling you get when you see a trade and you send it to the group chat
Yeah.
that you broke the news to them? That feels really good. So I think what we've always thought is these news breakers are in our group chat and they're letting us know when something happens and we think they're one of us,
Yeah.
but they're not. They are. This is something that I tried to say a lot. Like, doing a national show has been interesting for the 2 years I had it. And, there's nights where I want to talk politics, which I obviously cannot on 150 different affiliates, but I would make different parallels and show different things that were happening. And I was just trying to say, like, I try to say, you watch these sports people on TV. With news, you can turn on a news channel and you can, like, just by the name on the channel or how that's being presented, you can tell there is a bias, there is an agenda, and we've accepted that. We've accepted when I watch the news, there might be an agenda. But for some reason in sports, we haven't accepted that because the agenda isn't like who's going to win, who's going to lose. It's it's who am I working for? These guys are not working for us. They are working for agents. They are working for players. They are working to get the next big scoop. They are working for information. They are not working for the fan. We look at all these guys and we say, oh, Adam Schefter, the morning of Rodgers might get traded. But why is he reporting it when he's reporting it? Why has Shams been on this for 8 years? We never ask those kind of questions. Maybe we don't know the answers to them, but we just watch these guys and we turn on our TV in sports and we think he's telling me the 100% truth with no agenda and no bias because that's his job. That's not his job.
Mm-hmm.
The job is to get the information out to us rubes that the agents and the players and the teams want you to get out. No,
Mm-hmm.
Adam Schefter is not a journalist. These guys aren't journalists. They're not doing nobody does any digging anymore. Nobody does any reporting. All they're doing is they're getting news first because they have the best relationship with. Oh, I got to text Schefter. I owe him a favor. I'll text him 5 minutes before I text Chris Haynes. Like that's what they're doing it for.
Right.
Stupid.
Right.
And they're not working for us.
That's such a good point. They're not serving the public. They're serving certain interests.
Yeah.
Whatever those interests
They're
are, we're not really privy to.
There's
but they are
bias in
not
sports media.
100%. And I think some of it is like comes with the territory, or just like some of it is just like people just being open with their biases. Like Bill Simmons, he's a Boston sports fan, right?
Well,
like
there's
that, but there's also what you're talking to, I think, is the more insidious part of this, which is that they're serving a corporate interest. They're serving somebody who is not the sports fan, who is not a member of the public in the way that this is reported.
We think
and that's
they're
a
working
problem
for us.
Yeah.
They're not. Just like with commissioners. We always think that the commissioner is just like a super fan that wants what we want, but really they're just a shield for their owners.
Yes.
Like and they've done a great job fooling us. Like they've done a great job fooling us. No matter, how many times Goodell tries to be like, we want more football. Yay. He is just a figurehead for the owners. That's all he is.
100%. Okay. So as a Bucks fan, where do we go from here? What do you want to see happen next for the rest of? Let's just start with this season. What do you want to see happen as a fan of the team for the rest of this season?
I guess you would like to see enough bright spots that there can be a semblance of a team that emerges around Giannis. I think it was the 85 season of Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
This might have been the year with there was one year where they had Robert Downey Jr. and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I don't know if it might have been different years. Anyway, there was a year where the final sketch of the season was the cast was in a room and it was burning on fire. And this was a metaphor for they're all going to die, and a metaphor for nobody is coming back. We are burning this cast. No one's coming back. And then Lorne Michaels was in the room and he goes, not you, John. And he saved John Lovitz. Because as bad as this cast was, we knew we wanted John Lovitz to be saved. So we're going to save Giannis, who in this case would be John Lovitz.
First time that comparison's been made, I bet.
Last also. Is there anybody else worth saving is what we need to figure out. So that's the big thing. As far as the record thing, I know people want them to lose and tank. I don't know that I can watch a game tonight and root for them to lose. But, que sera, sera. Whatever happens is going to happen. Would say, whatever will be, will be. I personally would like to see them go I want to see them do what the Mavs did last year, where they go into the play-in tournament. We get to experience the novelty of that, but then they don't make the playoffs because the Mavs made the play-in tournament, which didn't disqualify them from a lottery pick somehow. They get one. So then they got a chance at the postseason, and they still got the number 1 overall pick. So it would be great.
So as it stands, the Bucks are the 12 seed in the East. They are 20-29. They are behind the Bulls, who just traded a bunch of people to I don't know. The Bulls have kind of just turned into the Herb Cole era Bucks in a lot of ways. So maybe they passed the Bulls. The Hornets are on kind of a run right now. They're the 10th seed. They're really fun. Yeah. They want to get in. I would want, if I was a Hornets fan, I'd be so excited like the first good team that they've had in a long time. Con Knippel, Wisconsin, Milwaukee area native, has been terrific for them. They just won 8 in a row. The Hawks are in a weird spot in the 9 seed. Whenever Jalen Johnson, another Wisconsin native, is healthy, they seem to be pretty good. The Heat didn't do anything at the trade deadline. They're the 8 seed, and the Magic have been really kind of disappointing. Basically a 500 team at the 7 seed. So those are the teams that would be in the mix for the play-in. And then below them,
I'm going to root for that until it's off the board.
You're going to root for the play-in. That means you'd want Giannis to come back as soon as he can. For the Bucks to really kind of go for it to get in the mix here. You want to see that happen with Doc Rivers?
Oh, forgot about that. Yeah, I'd like to see Doc relieved of his duties. But I think, I don't know. I'm really not gonna be rooting either way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll watch these games to watch them because winning could be good, make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Losing could be good, get a better pick. I'm not ready to, convince myself either way yet.
Sure.
But they're not going to win a title this year. So if that's the way to think about it, well, then just take and whatever. But so maybe I'll get to like 50.1, 49.9 tank over. It's just hard to root for your team to tank.
I think they'll. No, I think you're right.
Into it,
I think you're right. I think it is the type of scenario where, like, if they win, great. If they lose, like, it's the first low stakes season that we've had as Bucks fans, as far as like the win-loss record that we've had in like a decade, because this team has been very good. The last time they missed the playoffs was 10 years ago.
But if they're too bad, is Giannis going to be like, it's unsalvageable, even though you would get a better pick? We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. But I, I'm not a college basketball guy, so I don't know any of the players in the draft. So, but like the general consensus opinion seems to be that this is a better than usual draft. Last year had a ton of good players in the draft. Maybe there's a couple good years in a row. Who knows? But I think it would be pretty important for them to get a high pick, to have a lottery pick, to be able to go into the offseason with the 2031 and 2033 picks, to be able to deal that, also a 2032 swap, and then try to go build the team around. But the starting 5 that I would envision in this best case scenario for next year would be Giannis, Miles Turner, Ryan Rollins, lottery pick X, and second star Y, so that you use those 2 future picks, Kuzma's contract, whatever else it might be, to try and go hunting for a secondary star. That, the type of player that they've always needed for the Bucks is somebody on the wing. Since Chris Middleton's body started breaking down, they just haven't had a two-way player on the wing who can defend the Kawhis and Durants of the world, while also being a scoring threat on offense too. So I would look for the type of player like that. Who that is, I'm not really sure. But I think that should be the plan. That's how I would want to approach it. And I think try to get whatever you can out of young players. Give them a lot of run. Like, I don't want to see, some of the guys that they signed at the beginning of the year, who I think have performed admirably, but like Gary Harris and some of these other guys, that's just like, okay, well, they're not young players looking to get some development time. I want to see a lot of Ryan Rollins, a lot of AJ Green, maybe who's the guy they just traded for, Agbaji, that they got for this Cole Anthony swap. Give him a ton of minutes. Like, these are the types of players I want to see play a lot and get a chance to develop. I think they need to figure out how to better use Miles Turner as an offensive player. I think he's been good on defense, but I don't think they have figured out how to best use him on offense. So I'd want to see that, and I just want to continue to see the Ryan Rollins breakout happen, because I think that's been so huge for the Bucks, and having an actual good young player who's popped and is really starting to be a two-way threat. I think John Horst compared him to George Hill last offseason. Like, he could be a better player than that. George Hill was a really good player for a really long time. And if Rollins can continue on the path that he's been on and be the type of lead guard that he's been in Giannis's absence, That's great. The guy that I'm not as high on as far as the rest of the roster, I'm not a Kevin Porter Jr. guy. Uh, he's so inconsistent. He's so
Yeah.
talented, but he's so inconsistent and can't seem to stay healthy. And he will have these games where he'll have like a game where he shoots like 10 for 15 and hits 4 threes and gets a bunch of steals and is up and down the court and looks amazing. And then the next game, he's like 2 for 17 with 9 turnovers and looking like he should be out of the NBA. He's just such an inconsistent player. I guess I'd like to see more of Pete Nance, the two-way guy who's been getting some good run lately. I don't know what happened with Gary Trent. He is just absolutely fallen off a cliff this year. But I think the main thing I'd want to see them develop the young players, Rollins, AJ Green, from there, and then get themselves in a position where they can make a run next year. I think the plan has to be what's our best path to being a competitive franchise next season.
Yeah, I think, there's always the backdoor hope that as slim as it is, get a playoff, whatever, Giannis, because, hey, find something, work it out. And maybe that would go a long way for him to think, just whatever needs to happen for him to stay.
Yeah.
And we don't know the answer to that. I think we could probably think a high draft pick would help, and for sure it would. And they're not going to win the championship this year anyway.
Right.
So you gotta evaluate, I think, as a team. We need to make moves that are gonna get us as close to a championship as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But also there's points in a given year or a given, like, tenure where you're like, I mean, it would take an insane it's not even possible. So can we do it next year? And if we can't, can we do it the year after that? And what are the steps that we build to get it? There's too many teams that float around and like, well, make the playoffs and maybe. I think you should shoot for championship
Yeah.
because you might fall short. But if you just shoot for playoffs, so they got to shoot for championships. And I
Yeah.
don't think that there's a way to do that without Giannis in the near future.
Yep. And again, there's of course a very good chance he gets traded in the offseason. I'm not going to discount that. And I think some of the, all the reporting from the past week and like, I'm not completely going to say like Shams doesn't know what he's talking about at all, that there was never any rumors. Of course, there was some stuff happening, but I think it was always overblown to a certain extent. And I think it was always going to be more likely that an offseason trade were to happen. But I want them to keep Giannis for as long as possible. Like you talked about at the beginning of the podcast here about being what it was like to be a Bucks fan before Giannis got here, and when we were chasing the 8 seed and pinning our hopes on like these long shot draft picks and bad trades and whatever else. And like we were the dregs of the league. We were the Sacramento Kings of the East. We were the the also rans, the Wizards and the Hornets and like that's the type of franchise that we were before Giannis. And I think we got it. I don't want to go back to that. I'm wearing my Bucks in 6 championship hoodie right now, and you had the legendary the folding chair on Wisconsin Avenue right waiting for the parade. I still want to be in the mix for that for as long as it might be potentially viable. Maybe that window is past, but I am still going to continue to hold out hope that can still happen.
And I want it to happen with Giannis. And I think it's more likely, even if it's not that likely, it's still more likely, I think, with him than without him.
Yeah, I had somebody asked me this week, like, "Oh, do you really trust, Jimmy Haslam and the Bucks ownership to put together a good team?" I was just like, "Well, no, but I think I have more confidence in them doing that with Giannis than without him."
Yeah, Jimmy Haslam has made me miss the Lazaries.
Didn't think you'd be saying that, huh?
They were fine. They had other ideas. That's fine.
That's all right. Well, maybe and then they gotta switch the beer back to Miller at the stadium. That was a vibes apocalypse for them. No, but I don't know. It's been such a discombobulating week, and I'm so glad that we are ending it with Giannis still on the Milwaukee Bucks. And I think the relationship that he has with the city, with the fan base, is as special as it gets in pro sports. And let's try to keep that going for as long as we possibly can.
I'm with you 100%, Dan.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us here, Bart. Always good to talk to you. We'll have to do this again to talk Packers or Brewers or all kinds of other stuff at some point down the line.
You come on mine soon. I got to talk 794 with somebody.
Oh, we can talk all sorts of stuff there too. We'll get you on for some hot political takes too. Where for folks who might not be familiar then with where they can find your stuff, where should we direct people to?
The podcast is called Into the Winklerverse, and I'm on social media either at Bart Winkler or Bart Winkler Show.
All right, wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Bart. Bucks and 6 forever. Milwaukee versus
Six
everybody.
for the culture.
For the culture. All right, be well, my friend.
You too.